This episode of the Golf Gambling Podcast and the Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Sign up with promo code GOLFSGPN to score up to $250 in bonus cash. We're also brought to you by Rhythm. Get your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. All right, DGens, good morning. This is very early on Sunday. I am going on a little vacation, so I decided to pound this out before going on that vacation. I also have a ticking time bomb with my daughter who is sleeping, but she gets up around 6:15 or so. So I am on a clock right now. So we're not going to mess around. Not going to talk about the FedEx St. Jude, and definitely not going to talk about Daniel Jones. I plan to have a little rant on that. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to get right into the BMW. So it's just me this morning, by the way. I'm going to get through this. So this is a new golf course that we haven't seen since 2006. On the PGA Tour. It hosted the International, which is a Stableford event for about 20 years. Some notable winners there. Retief Goosen, Davis Love III was a two-time champion. Ernie Els, Phil Mickelson was a two-time champion. Greg Norman won this in 1989. One goes to wonder why he didn't pick this as a live spot, because basically every golf course he's picked seems like it's got a Greg Norman connection. But we have not seen this in the modern game in a long time. And there's not any data really behind it. You could try and go back to look at the Stableford results, but golf was a lot different back then. And it's Stableford. It's all about just birdies and eagles at that point. But I think that gives you kind of a little bit of a clue about what we're going to look for this week is the fact that they picked this golf course specifically for Stableford. It shows that this golf course is definitely ripe to be picked this week, especially with guys who just hit equipment so long and so straight. We'll get to what I think about this golf course and how it's going to play at the end. But spoiler alert, I think these guys are going to demolish it. And I'll show you why today. There's no data golf stuff that I really can show you this week, but I went through. There's some pictures of the golf course I'm going to show you. I took some screenshots of Google Earth because apparently streaming Google Earth just doesn't work with StreamYard anymore. So unfortunately, we're going to mothball it. But I picked out some key holes. We'll talk about it a little bit specifically with how, there's a lot of Jack Nicklaus in this golf course. And yes, it's at altitude. The surrounds are beautiful, but at the end of the day, it's really just a Jack Nicklaus golf course. There's a lot of his signature stylings on this place, and I'll show you those in a little bit. But we are going to Castle Pines Golf Club. This is in Castle Rock, Colorado. It is south of Denver. It was built in 1981 by, like I just said, Jack Nicklaus. In 2016, it underwent a full rebuild. It didn't change the routing. They added some new tee boxes to, I think, lengthen a little bit, but it's got some new bunkers, new tees and greens, like I just mentioned, but it mostly renovated a lot of water features. Kind of made it look a little prettier. So I'll show you a couple of those. Jack Nicklaus loves his waterfalls, and this is really no exception. Like I just mentioned, it hosted the International, a Stableford event in 2006. So with that, though, let's just get right to it. So let's share my screen here. Excuse me. It's early in the morning, so still getting the getting the body all set here. Here we go. Okay. So this is Castle Pines. Let's start with the opening shot here. Right off the jump. You can tell you're in Colorado. You are teeing off from an elevated position. It's about 200 yards down to the fairway here. This is the first par 5, 659 yards. We'll talk about the yardage because this is at elevation. This is at about 6,100 feet in elevation. So the ball is going to travel a lot farther. So the scorecard yardage this week is about 8,100 yards, 8,130. I actually went through it a little later. I'll show you just some of the altitude adjustments you can make for it. But on its face, 659-yard par 5. Obviously the downhill nature of it helps, but on its face, it's very long. You can see here, you can tell you're in Colorado, great vistas. You see the surrounding area with the mountains, all the pines here. It looks like you're just out west here. A lot of space, too, to navigate off the tee here. There are some mounds off the sides. If you miss your right, you'll have a uneven lie. It's 4-inch bluegrass rough here, but pretty wide fairways. Also, no fairway bunkers here. At least, there's the car path over here. There's no fairway bunkers to deal with off the tee. It is really just bombs away here. You get to the green though. I mean, it doesn't look all that complicated. Nothing really too scary. I got a couple bunkers set below the putting surface. Nothing too crazy though. So it is a little bit of a smallish green though. These are Jack Nicklaus greens. They're not always big. I think the average green size, which I ended up calculating out earlier, was about like 5,600 to 5,900 square feet. So slightly smaller than PGA Tour average. And the green is also angled. It's a long and narrow green. Jack Nicklaus tends to design a lot of his greens that kind of angle away from the players with the approach shots and tries to encourage a certain shot shape into them. And they tend to be, pretty long and narrow sometimes, or just, wide and narrow. So I'll show you a couple of examples, but the greens look very Jack Nicklaus, very familiar to what you see at some other Nicklaus places like Memorial specifically. There's definitely a lot of holes that I feel like they just lifted it from Memorial, but nothing too crazy here for the par 5. Again, 659 yards, but if you're in the fairway and at altitude, most moderate to longer hitters definitely can get here in 2. So, and I think that's going to be a big key this week, taking advantage of these par 5s, even though they are a little longer. You're going to get big boosts from being at altitude with both your iron shots and your tee shots. That's going to be really important this week. Let's go to the second hole here. So let's pick a good picture. Okay, so you're sitting here off the tee again. Great view. You're teeing off downhill. You see the mountains in the background here. It's a very pretty piece of property. I think that's definitely the appeal of playing this place. You got a water hazard, though, that guards the right side. You can't really see the green from the tee here. And it's about 360 yards. This is not the back tees, but from the back tees, about 360 yards to this water bunker. So it wouldn't seem like it's in play, but with altitude, the ball is going to carry a lot further. General rule of thumb for this place, if you're trying to adjust the yards, and I went through it a little later, you got to essentially knock off all the yardages by about 7%. That's what it kind of comes to with the altitude. So it's about 330 to carry, like with a normal altitude, to this water hazard, which, is still a long ways, but for some of these longer hitters, they definitely could fly it in there. So you're going to see guys try and just get to the middle of the fairway here. It bottlenecks right here. And then the green. So yeah, this is just the green. It's got the water hazard short here. I see a lot of holes at like a lot of Nicklaus places that are kind of designed like this, where it encourage you to maybe lay back a little bit off the tee, excuse me, and challenge you with the approach shot with a water hazard short here. Feel like the Memorial, it's a couple of these. Actually, there's another hole on this golf course that looks exactly like this on the back 9. It's just a shorter par 4 positional where the water is short right here. But yeah, that's number 2. Number 3. So this is an example of what some of their renovated water hazards here. Here's an example here. Just a very pretty stream, and with rock, limestone rocks and waterfalls going all the way down to a pond with a limestone wall here. This is the par 3 or par 4. I think it's like 470 yards. I don't know. I didn't put in my notes, unfortunately. But like I mentioned, they renovated a lot of the water hazards here. This is an example. So, Nicklaus, you think of his golf courses, there is a penal aspect to it, specifically with water. There are a couple holes here where you will be punished off the tee with some creeks or streams to gobble up errant tee shots. So it's not quite bombs away, but with how far and straight these guys hit it with their modern technology, it kind of is. Even the likes of Rory McIlroy or Xander, like guys who just hit it so far, they hit so many fairways with the technology they're using. So, it's just going to be kind of like a big strokes gain off the tee week, I feel like, this week. But if you are spraying it everywhere, you definitely can get in trouble. You can pile up some penalty strokes here. This is an example right here. 4th hole, this is a par 3, 250 yards. Again, just a very pretty hole. You got, it's like canyons, a little bit of, native grasses down to the right of the hole here. You see the the mountains in the background. Again, just like it reminds me of how at Spyglass Hill, just right off the bat, your opening holes, you see the Pacific Ocean. Like it just is right there in your face. And then actually, as you get past the first 5 or 6 holes, then you start moving inland. It's more just woods and feels like you're on like a nature hike. It's not, you're not seeing all these, the big mountains in the background. You're kind of more hidden inland now. Well, it's inland, but you're more hidden from surrounding mountain area. You don't see it as much. So that's kind of similar to what I feel like it is Spyglass. But this is another example, right in your face. Excuse me. You have the mountains in the background. The green is angled away from you. This is definitely a very traditional Jack Nicklaus hole where you got to hit a power fade into it. At altitude, it plays more like 220. So don't let the yardage kind of, fool you here. But yeah, it's a very beautiful hole. But, it's a very standard Jack Nicklaus par 3 here. You got the 6th hole here. So I'm just pointing this out. This is an example of how, length will definitely help you this place. So the fairway bottom, so the hole, kind of serpentines a little bit to the right here. You have these 2 fairway bunkers right here. From the back tees, it's only 283 to clear it over on the left here. It's about 300 carry here, and it's 315 over here. But at altitude, guys are getting 7% more distance. You could definitely see them send it over the second bunker here and get into the fairway where it starts to widen up a little bit. So, guys are going to be able to shorten up this golf course a lot, specifically on this type of hole, with the driver. So, and, you gotta, basically the only thing you really got to worry about on this hole is getting in these pine trees or maybe push it a little bit too far left of this bunker. But I mean, you might be able to carry this bunker as well. Back here, just if you really can send it. So again, just kind of hit it as far as you can. Aim for maybe the left side of the house here. Peel it back into the fairway. And these bunkers are not going to be in play for these guys. Let's zoom ahead a little bit. Let's go down to the 10th hole. Again, nice. This is a long par 4, 542 yards, but at altitude plays more like 510. And again, you see the surrounding area here. You're teeing off from uphill. It's a very beautiful tee shot here. This water looks a lot closer than what it is. This is actually by the green over here. So it's not going to be in play off the tee. But it's going to be a longer approach shot for these guys. Even at altitude, it's still going to be probably about 175 to 200. Well, altitude adjusted 175 to 200. It might be 10 actual. But if you knock off 7% of that, it's going to be falling that bucket. But yeah, water guards short of the green. So if you don't hit a really poor iron shot, you're going to incur some penalty strokes. Again, there is a penal nature to Jack Nicklaus golf course for the most part, at least in the form of water. So if you're just spraying it everywhere and you're not hitting good shots, you're going to get penalized. This is an example right here. Let's go to the 11th hole. Very pretty hole. So again, like you're not seeing like the big vistas of the surrounding mountains or anything like that, but it's a downhill par 3 framed by pine trees all around here. It's 197 yards. So it's actually more like because it's downhill, probably a wedge for these guys in these conditions. And you talk about how they renovate a lot of the water hazards. So this is actually what it looked like in 2016 here. And now it looks a little more refined. You got flowers over to the left, a more defined waterfall, a rock bridge that guards the front here. You got bunkers set well below the putting surface. Yeah, it's a very pretty hole. Again, with how the green is shaped, it favors a fade. Not a surprise, Nicklaus Golf Course. But again, very pretty piece of land, very pretty piece of property. You always like when you play a golf course, kind of feels like the surrounding area. This definitely does a great job with that. It's a lot of eye candy here. So that's the 11th hole. Let's zoom ahead a little more. The 12th hole here. another example of how they renovated the water here. So there's a stream that runs down the left side of the hole here. This is back in 2006. And then they just kind of dolled up a little bit. They expanded the fairway or the waterfall over to the left, added more flowers here. Just again, looks a little prettier here. But the hole didn't fundamentally change. Although, so this hole in particular, though, so Jack Nicklaus, I'll show you the. Sorry, I got a mosquito buzzer on my head. If you see this on the YouTube, my apologies. But I'll show you the overhead of the Google Earth in a little bit. But Jack Nicklaus, one of the ways he tries to deter taking drivers out of these guys' hands is having the fairway run out so that if you hit driver, you're going to go into the rough. Well, this is an example. The fairway runs out here at about 330, but knock off 7%, runs out at about 305. So that is his way of basically saying, okay, you got to lay back a little bit off the tee. But, and then the second shot here, if you miss left, you're going into the water, but just, you got a lot of room to miss right. There's no excuse to go left here. Even if the pin is tucked back left, guys are just going to fire through the middle of the green. But, this looks like a very pretty hole. So, all right, why don't we take our first quick break, and then we'll get to the rest of the holes, and then we'll go from there. So let's talk about Underdog Fantasy. So Underdog Fantasy Pick'em gives you a chance to win 1,000 extra entry or play fantasy football right away with Best Ball. Best Ball Mania is live with $50 million in prizes. So go in today, sign up with fantasy, use promo code GOLFSGPN to claim your special pick plus first time deposit offer up to $250 in bonus cash. UnderdogFantasy.com, promo code GOLFSGPN. And Circus Sports is back with Circus Survivor and Circa Millions, giving away $16 million in guaranteed prizes. Imagine the regret you'll feel if you win your Office Survivor pool but didn't enter Circus Survivor. Don't have a trip booked for Las Vegas yet? The Ultimate Contest Week is coming up, and it's a great time to go hang out with Sean and Ryan. They'll be out there in Las Vegas and enjoy some of the open bar events at the greatest sportsbook in the world. They'll be there from August 22nd to the 24th. Use promo code GOLFSG15 to save 15% on your hotel room for sign-up weekend. Sign up in person in Circus Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We sign up in person at Circus Sports between now and September 7th and use a proxy to play from anywhere. We even have a deal with a proxy. So go to proxy.footballcontest.com to save you $50 with promo code GOLFSGP and a free hat. All right, back to it. Let's go to a couple other holes here. Let's go to, again, let's go to the 14th hole here. So this is a par 5, 655 yards. So kind of like the first hole, there's not a ton of adversity off the tee. There's no fairway bunkers. It's very dead straight in front of you. They got some pine trees flanking bowl. So if you hit it well offline, it's going to be in there. But the challenge is, again, in the approach shot. And there's a lot of water around the green here. You got this stream that winds its way in front of the green to a pond in front here. Let's see. Yeah, it's just another angle of it. So yeah, so basically the challenge is going to be in your second shot. If you hit a very poor second shot left, you're going to find the water. A lot of longer hitters are going to be able to take this out of play, probably bail right here and get up and down for their birdie. So again, very pretty hole here, but pretty straightforward. Just hit a drive as far as you can down the fairway. Not a lot of trouble that you really have to deal with on this hole off the tee. The challenge is going to be in your second shot here. And it's a wide green, but very narrow green. So not a big, target really to hit for your second shot here. 16th hole here. Now I'll show you the Google Earth picture of it. This is kind of, I feel like, this looks a lot like the 16th at Memorial because you have just a longerish par 3. This is 224 yards. Probably plays about like 200 adjusted with the altitude here. You got water short left here of the green. You got a couple bunkers you got to deal with too, but this looks, I'll show you the Google Earth picture. It looks very similar to the 16th at Memorial. Just a couple bunkers are repositioned here. 17th. So I'll show you off the tee here. So it's only 500. Well, the scorecard yard is 528. if you add it all up, it's 8,054 yards, what I came up with. Now, the tournament's going to play at 8,130. So I'm guessing that they probably added a tee box here, and it's going to play, this one's going to play closer to like 560. But regardless, though, again, it does discourage you from pulling driver at this golf course or at this hole. So it starts to narrow at about, well, from the tee, I estimated 310, might be 320, 330 now. But you got this stream that runs all the way down the left side. Fairway pinches in, and then you have a hill, and you got some pine straw up here. You don't have a lot of room to operate. You only have about maybe like from where the creek kind of juts in here to where bottlenecks, only about maybe 35 yards to play with. You got these bunkers here. They're about like 315 to carry, which at altitude you definitely can get into. So even though it's probably only going to play like 560, 550 maybe, you're probably going to see guys not pull driver and kind of lay up short into the fat part of the green because at altitude, they definitely can get home in two. It's not that long of a shot, but this is one of the holes where, you know, a penalty will be, you'll incur a penalty, or there will be a penalty for missing a fairway at this place because getting home in two will be difficult if you're in one of these bunkers or on a side hill. Obviously, you have the creek to the left here. That's no bueno. All right. So that's all the pictures I want to show you. What I want to show you next, though, is, and I got the Google Earth pictures. I want to show you just kind of how those pictures looks like you're in Colorado. But from the overhead, though, this is just a Jack Nicklaus golf course at the end of the day. It's a lot of it's with the greens. And I showed you earlier. Here's the first hole, 659 yard par 5. So what I was talking about, like, you know, Jack likes to build his greens to angle either, to basically angle away from the fairway here. So, and encourage a certain shot shape. In this particular one, he wants to encourage you to hit a draw into this green here. So the green is angled away from the fairway here, going to the left. Second hole here, I feel like I've seen this hole a lot at a lot of his golf courses where it's forcing you to lay up a little bit off the tee. And then you have a large water hazard guarding short of the green here. Again, the green is angled away from the player. This one asks you to hit more of a left or right shot. It's most pin positions. That's usually what most Jack Nicklaus courses kind of favor. You got the 9th hole here. This kind of looks a little bit like Valhalla. Valhalla was, par 5. It's got the split fairway, but it's got, the creek and some waterfalls running all the way to the right here. You got the trio of fairway bunkers to the left. It doesn't have the horseshoe shaped green like Valhalla did, but at least off the tee, looks very similar to what you see at Valhalla. 12th here, this is what I talked about earlier, where the fairway runs out about 330 or so. So that is Jack's way of kind of deterring guys from pulling driver and just bombs away. And then you got the water hazard short left here to penalize anything you miss left. So, and then the 16th hole here. Overhead, this looks exactly like the 16th at Memorial. Some of these bunkers are repositioned here, but, just straightaway tee shot. You got water left here. This looks exactly like that hole. So at the end of the day, you'll hear about the altitude and playing in Colorado, but this is just a Jack Nicklaus course. At the end of the day, a lot of things you probably would want to favor at a Nicklaus course. Other Nicklaus courses you'd favor here. This one probably is a little more bomber biased, I would say, than some other places. But you just got to drive the ball really good. And that's true for a lot of Jack Nicklaus courses, even though there is a little bit of a targeting nature to some of them. Probably the iron shots, considering the greens are basically kind of constructed similar to a lot of other Nicklaus courses. There's some targeting natures with that. Obviously, a lot of greens have water looming on this hole, so don't miss big. So yeah, I mean, that's basically all you need to look for. So that's Castle Pines, the pictures, some key holes here. Hopefully you guys kind of got a flavor that while it's a very beautiful golf course, I mean, especially some of those tee shots where you're hitting downhill, you got the mountains in the background. It's great. Even when you go inland too, with the pine trees, it feels it just makes you feel like you're playing out west. It's just a Nicklaus course at the end of the day. And you probably, if you want to just go with picking guys who tend to play well at Memorial or Concession, well, maybe not Concession, but Valhalla. I would say this is probably a prettier Valhalla that these guys will probably tear apart just as easily. I think there's gonna be a lot of birdies here. As long, obviously there can be some holes where guys are going to, put up some big numbers because there's water. You can incur the penalty strokes, but if you keep the ball in front of you, especially some of these green complexes, like while they look Jack Nicklaus, they don't seem to have a ton of complexity to it and a lot of difficulty, especially some of these bunkers too. Like, they're not set so deep under the playing surface. If you're in them, it's probably relatively easy up and down. I think there's going to be a lot of birdies to be had at this place, and I think that's why they picked this place as a Stableford event back in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s. Nothing really what they've done to the golf course as far as the renovations seem to have maybe changed how tough it is. Maybe the greens play a little more difficult, but I think there's going to be a lot of birdies this week. So probably guys who drive it really good. I'll show you what I think the proximity buckets are going to be in a little bit. Target guys are pretty good with those. Definitely loose iron play probably will get punished a lot because there is a lot of penalty areas around some of these greens. But yeah, I think these guys are not going to really have a big problem this week. So let's take another quick break, and then we will finish up this podcast. So we are brought to you by Rhythm. Football season is here, and college football and NFL models are now running on Rhythm. Create your own winning betting model or let Rhythm do the heavy lifting for you. You decide what stats matter most to you, and Rhythm builds a custom model around that. Or just let Rhythm and its predicted model do the heavy lifting. Rhythm uses AI projections from MIT scientists to basically build the best models for you, or just use it for the predicted model to do the heavy lifting. Rhythm already has you covered for NFL Week 1 and college football Week 0. So claim your 7-day free trial today by going to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/rhythm. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/RITHMM. And we're also brought to you by Game Time. So, right now we are in the heart of baseball season. The boys of summer are playing out there fighting for wildcard spots, and maybe you want to decide at the last minute that you want to go to the game, and that can be kind of a stressful situation. Trying to find the best seats, making sure you get the best price. Well, Game Time can help you with last-minute killer deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes all the guesswork out of buying and they got everything for you to help you with your ticket buying experience. They got last minute deals. You can save up to 60% off your buying for last minute sports, concerts, comedy, theater, etc. You can save even more with exclusive in-deal flash deals or select seats ahead of the game for the event. They got zone deals where you actually get a deal if you pick a particular section. Game Time will let you choose the seats and give you a bit of a discount there, and all-in pricing. They'll give you this feature to show your total upfront with no surprise fees at checkout. You can even see what's the view from your seat is using Game Time. That's always great. You don't want to be stuck behind a pylon or just have a really bad view of your sporting event. You can actually see where you're going to be sitting, and they have the lowest price guarantee on Game Time. Game Time will credit you up to 110% of the difference if you find another ticket that is less. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code SGPN for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code SGPN for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Okay, let's get rid of this. And let's I forgot to boost this up. Sorry, guys. 6:10 in the morning. Mine wasn't firing as sharp. Let's get to the tournament fact sheet of this place. I forgot to have that. Let's go here. Hopefully the internet doesn't crap out because I'm loading something on the fly. Okay, here we go. So this is just CSAA report. Obviously, like I mentioned, this is a Jack Nicklaus design 1981. It was innovated in 2016. Water hazards, they look a lot prettier than what they are now. Average green size, 5,600 square feet. When I estimated, I came to about 5,800 square feet. That's just using little lines on Google Earth. So, these are a little smaller than the average PGA Tour golf course. Not a surprise. Jack Nicklaus greens never really are all that big. It's really a lot of small targets. With some of their how he uses ridges and shelves on the greens as well, they can play a little bit smaller. It can be turned into a little bit of target golf. And the greens are classic Nicklaus greens, this place. So I would expect them to not play any different than any other Nicklaus course. Let's talk about agronomy, though. So bent POA is the grass out here. They're going to run quick too. GCSA says they run 13 centimeter. So, you'll see memorial type speeds probably, especially if it's firm and hot out there. I haven't looked at what the weather is going to be, but these greens can definitely roll a little quick. Actually, and you can see too, I was watching the no laying up video. They had Tron play. I forget who he was playing, but they played Castle Pines because they're sponsored by BMW, so they wanted to showcase the golf course that they're playing. And you can actually tell. I can tell right from the jump, like, oh, these are bent POA greens, because you can see, most of it is bent, but you see the kind of the light splotchy patches of POA this place. So I would say they're mostly bent with some POA kind of creeping into the greens here. Maybe they were originally all bent and they just let the POA kind of get into it, but they're going to play quick. And at 13 on the stimp meter, that means they're shaving it lower. So some of the inconsistent POA nature you can sometimes see on bent POA greens, like Travelers, where it runs a little slower. They let the grass grow a little higher. That means the POA can make it a little more inconsistent as the ball rolls. I don't think you're going to see much of that. So probably these are going to roll really true. It probably rolls more like a bent grass this week. So even though it's bent POA, I'd be careful trying to compare to other bent POA places like Glen Abbey or Travelers or Rocket Mortgage. They're probably going to roll probably like they do at like Memorial, I would say. So, bent POA surrounds. You got POA, bent grass, and perennial ryegrass in the fairway. So northern strains of grass. The rough here, Kentucky bluegrass, 4+ inches. That's probably going to be how they try and protect the place. But, we've seen so many of these courses try and grow up the rough, and it just doesn't really matter. Most of these guys too, like, they hit it so far and straight now that if you're just relying on strokes gain off the tee, you're probably going to get the most efficient drivers anyways. When I first started doing this, mostly guys who ranked highly in that category were mostly guys who just hit it the farthest. It's not really the case anymore. So, I would just look at that metric. Guys who just drive it really good, you're going to do fine here. And again, course has over 400 feet in elevation change. I showed you some of the holes. The highest point is 6,400 feet in elevation. I think that's on hole number 1. Like I just mentioned, the entire course has been renovated since 2006. And they rebuilt the bunkers, new tees, new water features. There's also, if you're a big nature buff, there is a herd of 250 elk that coexist around the golf course. And there's deer and bobcat, mountain lion. Again, very pretty piece of property. Makes you feel like you're playing the Mountain West. So, at least looking at it looks good. Okay. Let's show you the altitude adjustment. So here's the thing. So there's no data golf data. So doing a preview this week is going to be kind of difficult because we don't really know what to expect. I kind of know what to expect. I think this is going to be a golf course where you got to drive it really good. I think distance will help you, but there obviously will be places where if you are spraying it everywhere, it's going to hurt you. There's going to be a lot of birdies. And I think the biggest question, though, is you probably look at this 8,100 yards and you're like, well, how long does it actually play? Well, I went through and actually calculated for you guys. Here it is. Let's zoom out a little bit. So like I mentioned, at about 6,200, 6,100 feet of altitude, it's about a 7% adjustment to how far you can actually hit it. So let's say a guy hits their 7-iron 190 yards, or they hit it, 200 yards or so. That means they can hit it 214 this week. So that's the adjustments they're going to have to make. But basically take every hole yardage and knock out 7% of it. So, for example, this par 5 here, 659 yards at altitude, which I'm just estimating based on the highest point and the lowest point, average altitude, plays about 611. So, still, that's pretty long, but it's downhill. You're going to see guys really bombing off tee. I would probably say the longest hitters are going to hit 400 plus on this hole to really shorten it up. I mean, it's going to be very reachable probably in 2 for these guys. But like, for example, too, like, number 2, 432 yards, plays like 401. Number 3, 472, plays like 440. Number 5, 488. Like, this is, I think this is probably where you really see the difference is the par 4 yardage. Like, oh, a par 4, 488. That's pretty long. Well, it plays like 454. Not that long. Number 9, 496, plays like 460. Number 10, par 4, 542 yards, plays like 502. Like, long par 4, but nothing crazy really that what we haven't seen. There's usually a longer par 4, maybe pushing 500 yards on every PGA Tour golf course we see. Number 12, 445, plays more like 413. Number 14, again, like another 600 plus yard par 5, plays 608. So again, like, it's a longer par 5, but for some of these longer hitters, you probably can get there in 2. Number 17, this is one, it's listed at 528. I would probably say, let's just call it 560. Probably plays like 520 though. So again, pretty short. That is a hole where it's discouraging from hitting a driver because there's pitfalls when you start getting about 330 out, and with driver, these guys can definitely get there. But this is not going to be a very long hole by any stretch of the imagination. And then the 18th, 511 yards. Seems pretty long, but it plays at normal altitude, like the types of clubs we're hitting, 474. Long, but not crazy. So don't get carried away with the yardage here. So yeah, 80, 86, or well, I had to 80, 54 before I made the adjustment. But probably plays more like a 7,400, or like a 7,500 yard golf course where a lot of the length is actually going to be in your par 5s here. You got 2 of them over 600 yards. You had a couple par 3s that are going to be pushing over 200 yards. Yeah, so 16 and 4. But like, if you take the average of what I think the altitude adjusted par 4 yardage is, which really I think is what you really have to look at as far as like how long a golf course is. I mean, the average is 439. That's pretty short. So, and that's why I think there's going to be a lot of birdies at this place. Is these are not very long par 4s when you actually adjust for the altitude. So you're going to see probably a lot of guys hit a lot shorter irons into them. And you can kind of see that with what I think the estimated proximity buckets are. And this is altitude adjustment. So what I basically did was I took, unless, there were some holes where I felt like these guys had to lay up off the tee, I just knocked off about 300, 305 yards off their drives, because I just feel like that's about what the average guy in this field is probably going to be doing. These are better players, mostly longer players. So maybe average like, 305, 307 or so. Not that off. It's a lot of shots under 200 yards, which is not a big surprise, but get out of here. Don't do that. So, 12 out of your 18 shots are going to be under 200 yards. I kind of did a rough estimate of, what the PGA Tour average is, a little bit higher. There's going to be 2 shots I feel like are going to be just flip wedges. Number 2 here and number 15. Those are what I mentioned earlier. They're basically the same hole where it forces you to kind of lay up off the tee, short of the water hazard, and you have about less, at least adjust for altitude, less than 100 yards in. About PGA Tour average for how many shots between 125 and 150. A lot less between 150 and 175. I feel like that's kind of the dead zone. But 3 shots, about PGA Tour average from 175 to 200. And then we're going to have, some longer approach shots, but mostly on your par 5s, which is not a big deal. So those are still birdie holes. So primarily, though, I mean, most of your par 4s where you really got to score, get a lot of birdies. If I think this thing's going to be, as low scoring as what I think it is, it's pretty manageable. It's a lot shorter than what I think what most people might think. So if you want to screenshot this, for your average proximity bucks based on what I think, That's what I think is going to happen. 2 shots from under 100, 2 shots between 100 and 125, 3 shots between 125 and 150. So 7 shots from under 150 yards, 5 shots between 150 and 200, and 6 from over 200. But those are going to be your par fives. So if you just want to look at par 5 scoring, kind of get those shots out of here, and then a couple from over 200 with the par threes. So those will be probably some of the tougher ones of the golf course, especially with all the water that comes into play on those holes. So, all right, that's it. Let's get rid of this. I want to thank you for watching this. I will not be here on Tuesday. I'm going on a little vacation, but I figured I would get you guys prepped for this tournament, get you a good idea what this golf course looks like, some things I want to look at this week. But yeah, I think winning score probably, par 72, not a lot of really long or tough par fours. I think the winning score is definitely going to creep in the 20s. We've seen that with a lot of BMWs before. These guys have kind of been picking it apart. Unless we get some weather conditions that really are going to, make things more difficult, which I haven't looked at. On the surface, there's no reason why somebody can't take it really low at this place. So birdies are going to be the name of the game. I think you got to drive it good. Obviously, I think there's going to be a very penal. There definitely can be a penalty for bad iron shots here, like other Nicklaus courses, because there's a lot of water and hazards around the green. They're going to basically pile up the strokes for you. But yeah, like if you get a guy who's hitting it really good, and I don't think there's going to be a lot of surprises this week. I think, the guy's been hitting the best. We're going to be able to take advantage of it. It's going to come down to how many birdies they can make. Touchdowns are good. Sorry, I'm not, breaking some news to you guys. But all right, so that's it. Thank you for watching. Make sure to tune in on Tuesday. Boston Capper will be back. He'll have Brian Kirshner on the show for the betting show. Also, check out Matt Gannon's DFS preview this week. It'll come out tomorrow. Thank you for watching on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't done it already, or go to Twitter. Follow us there. Follow us on TikTok. Subscribe to the Golf Going Podcast on Apple or Spotify. And with that, good luck this week. Good luck betting. We'll see you then.